Hey, great to see you. Um, so I'd like to use this session is about your career. I teach a bunch of different skills and skill stacking, MBA, ASAP, and then I asked quite a bit about the next steps. How does that help my career? How can I get better jobs? How can I get more opportunities? So I wanted to put together something that was a little bit of a formal sort of a system for us to talk about and gain clarity about a process of how to better our careers and to have more opportunities available to us. So let's get going. So here it is, career global career strategy framework from getting the certification from MBA SAP to what type of career outcomes and career opportunities you can have. So, this session, we're going to focus on the highest leverage decisions for your career, not just immediate steps, but how to position yourself for strong opportunities, right? So, here's how we're going to do it. We'll start with your current situation, and then I'll walk you through a simple framework, and then we'll apply it so that you leave with a clear, actionable plan. So, I really hope this should be very, very fruitful for you. So here's the problem basically. Most of us, approach careers reactively. We apply for jobs, we hope, we wait, and that tends to lead to slow progress and a lot of frustration. So here, we undersell our capabilities, rely on low probability channels, and that's not what we want to do. So instead, we want to make a shift, right, in our mindset. And we want to instead do is a strategic approach. Clarity first. We have to have clarity, and then positioning, and then targeted action. So we're going to take a simple, just a strategic approach instead. So first, the framework overview here, is this is a framework I use, and everything breaks into four parts, target, position, access, conversion. So when we're talking about targeting, it's like what's the function that we're looking for, first of all, right? What role are you aiming for? That's really the simple question. And think about that. And if it isn't fully clear at this moment, that's normal. Don't worry about it. You'll clarify this over time. One of the things I can suggest, I'm going to suggest it right out here, is take these kind of ideas and turn them into prompts for ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity, whatever AI chatbot you like to use, and turn them into prompts and using like ChatGPT was really super helpful to get clarity on these kind of things. I use it all the time I say to gain clarity in any kind of decisions I'm making. If anything seems a little bit foggy or fuzzy and I really can't figure it out, I turn to my chatbot and ask it questions, and it comes back, and it really, through a process, an iterative process, really tends to help me. So, I mean, is it an entry level position? Is it, are you experienced? What's the geography? Or remote work, right? So the key idea is to gain clarity here. So let's start with the position. This is where most candidates struggle. Employers don't hire degrees; they hire signals, and that's what you have to start to learn. It's not like, well, I have this degree, that degree. With MBA SAP, you get the certificate. You get you can get the accredited certificate from Florida Global University. Our partner. But you really need to have an idea about the signals that you're sending. And our goal here is to translate your background into something employers can immediately understand. So yeah, so in position, instead of saying you have the FGU, the Florida Global University certificate, say trained in applied corporate finance and financial analysis frameworks. That's a much clearer thing, and that's really what you've learned through MBA ASAP. And, I think that can make it really, really super, super positive. Employers then can really understand what you've done. So access, um, how do you reach opportunities? Um, Most people, rely on applications, job applications, which is really the lowest probability path. HR departments get hundreds of applications. You really can't stand out. People, oh, I'm going to put my resume on red paper or something, but that's really not the way to do it. We want to balance it with higher leverage approaches. And one of the great ones I can suggest to you is LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, get on it. And if you are on LinkedIn, start to think about how you're positioning yourself. You use your biography there, put in your different jobs, and post there. Post um, things that you're thinking about. Different articles. That you see that you can then repost or write. The best is to write your own. Start thinking about your reactions and responses to the things that you're seeing and doing in your career and in the world, and post there. I think that's really a great way to start raising your profile, and start. It's a great place to network. Network is a modern thing, but start to increase your network. Get more, people on LinkedIn that you're interested in, talking to and getting to know. You increase your network. You increase your luck surface and your opportunities. So then we come to conversion, right? And once you get an interview, the question becomes, can you convert it into an offer, right? Interviews are not exams, they're decisions under uncertainty. Employers are asking, really, can this person solve problems, the kind of problems that we have? So here it really breaks down to three things. Most career decisions break down to three different things: money, risk, and control. It's an easy way to think about this, right? And money, what roles pay and grow. Sometimes it's better to take a role if you want to get into a certain type of career path where you can actually grow and learn a lot. Maybe it doesn't pay as much immediately, but you can see that as an opportunity going forward. That's really key. Risk, you want to mitigate risk. We're always trying to manage risk. What could block us in these things? And then control. What is in our control, what's out of our control. That's the old Stoics thing, right? Focus on what is in your control, and that is skill stacking. Learn skills, the kind of skills that you can apply to the kind of jobs that you want. And I can tell you from my experience, one of the great skill sets that you can add to any skills that you have already, whether you're a biologist or a computer scientist or whatever, are financial skills. To understand how to read financial statements, how to use quantitative finance decision making tools like net present value. These are the kind of things that we teach in MBA ASAP that can really quickly give you some skills that you can stack with any other skills that you have, and that's within your control. So applying this model, right? So really what it is, the goal is to choose roles with growth, reduce the barriers, reduce risks, and focus on what you can control. That's really what we're trying to do here, and build those capabilities. So, a common mistake is applying for jobs before you're really clearly positioned in this way. And the sequence really matters. And here's the sequence: to find the target role, build your positioning, use high leverage access, and improve your conversion rate. So let's go through your situation. Let's map your situation into this framework. And so these are the three things, four things we're going to talk about: target, position, access, and conversion. So target first, right? So this is what really drives clarity. What roles are you currently aiming for? And if you had to pick a primary direction, what would it be? Are you optimizing for learning, income, or long-term growth? Those are the kind of things that you want to think about. Now, if you're vague, let's narrow this down. Finance, analyst, operations, something else. What we're really trying to do is to choose a lane, even if temporarily, something. You don't need a perfect answer, but what you need is a clear direction, right? So step two is position. And this is the leverage point here. How would you describe your value to an employer in one sentence? This is key. And this is something that you can work with ChatGPT or something to refine too. Work with a friend. Um, but I like that, you can do with a chatbot anywhere. And these are brand new tools that, we never had before. So they're great to use. What problems can you solve? Absolutely a key thing. What would make somebody hire you over another candidate? So really try to think about these things. So, and then translate your education into capabilities, your experience into outcomes, and the certification into a signal, right? You really want to get away from a weak narrative, generic language, and you want to differentiate yourself. Right now, it's marketing. These are marketing tools, right? When you think about it, everything is sales and everything is marketing. And we are trying to position ourselves strategically from a marketing standpoint, right? And if your positioning isn't that strong, it's fixable. You can work on it. So access, how are you currently applying and reaching out to companies? Are you mostly applying online? Do you have any direct outreach or networking you can do? So, you don't want to have an over reliance on job boards. You don't want to have a passive approach. You want to get active on this. And this is where LinkedIn can really help you too. So the fourth is conversion, right? And think about that with marketing. You have a sales funnel and then you're trying to get conversions. You're trying to make sales, right? Conversions here is if when you have an interview and you have interviews, how comfortable are you in interviews? What kind of questions do you find difficult? Then you start to refine those. And then are you converting that into job offers? So think about this. Your target is currently, it might be unclear, too broad, misaligned. That's where you want to refine it. Your positioning might need to be stronger or more specific, and you may be relying too much on low probability channels. Those are the kind of things you want to start to think about there. So now let's turn this into an action plan. Here's just 4 steps, right? Let's translate this into a clear action plan that you can execute immediately. So you pick one primary role to focus on for the next 30 to 60 days. Might be financial analyst or business analyst or an operations role. Step 2, you want to upgrade your positioning, right? You need to refine how you present your background. Rewrite your LinkedIn headline. That's a great place to start. Reframe certification, excuse me, and create a 1 or 2 sentence value statement. So step 3 here, improve your access strategy. Shift away from purely applying for jobs. Identify 10 to 15 targeted companies you'd like to work for, and do direct outreach to them through LinkedIn or through email. Look for their HR directors and stuff, and combine that with selective applications. And 4, prepare for conversion. Be ready to perform once you get interviews. Practice, make a practice story. Prepare 3 to 5 strong examples that you have. People ask you sometimes, like, "Oh, what's an example of a time where you actually solved a problem?" And you should have 3 or 4 different, stories ready that you can tell, that you've rehearsed, and so you can grab one that's more, tailored to what their niche is, and focus on a problem-solving mindset. That's what you really want to. That's what you really want to talk to them there. So if you do these 4 things, you'll be in a much stronger position in a few weeks. I mean, this can really help. This is the kind of work to do. So here's the key insight, really. The goal is not just to complete a qualification, like MBA, ASAP, getting the certificate. That's key, but it's something, you want to become someone the market wants to hire. And that's taking it to the next step, right? Taking your certifications and putting them into something that's really marketable. So that's it. I'm open for future sessions and continued support. And go to MBA SAP and take the course, join the community. And I look forward to talking to you soon. Take care. Bye.